One burger each, though. One burger.
Share it. Voucher for a burger.
To be fair, though, if we had a parade, it would be ridiculous. You can't be having a parade for being 17th in the league. We didn't have a parade when we won the European Cup, for Christ's sake. So
You can't win that battle.
no, because of the Rangers fans were in that one. But
Let's get on to Manchester United. Adam, Europa League final. Do you think the game's more important for Manchester United, or I mean,
I don't know. It'd be a bit. Obviously, Spurs fans will hold importance to it as well, and it'll be a little bit arrogant of me to go, yeah, it means more to us than it does to them. But it's massive for Manchester United when you look at the financial implications as well. I hate that we have to talk about winning cup finals because of the financial implications.
It ruins it. It's the same. Just to jump in there for 1 second, it's the same with City. Like the Champions League, getting in the Champions League, we have a game 3 days after the FA Cup final against Bournemouth at home. If we win that, we're likely going to get in the Champions League. And there's people debating which game's more important. You've got the FA Cup final, you've got a home game to get in the top 5. It's crazy, isn't it? But
yeah, it is depressing when you have to turn into an accountant based on trophies. But huge day for United. Getting Champions League football, the financial implications of that would make the summer a whole lot easier, and Amorim's job a little bit easier as well. But yeah,
do you think about it in terms of Amorim? You just mentioned there, because I'm thinking about his quotes as well from the weekend. But it's going to take a long time, and to sort of fix United. Does this could this almost feel like he put you back 12 months in terms of the financial sort of landscape? It's like, where does he go from there if he hasn't got money in the summer to spend and really change and put a stamp on the squad?
How much you read into them that we will have money there without Champions League football, but obviously it'd be a lot different with the Champions League football. You look at like the kind of money Liverpool earned just for being in the group stages, it was astronomical, and that would be massive for Manchester like in the summer. But I just think in terms of the mood as well, we've kind of been holding on for this Europa League final, going, wow, we're going to win that, so the league form, we can put the last couple of months to the side. But if we lose it, it would be a little bit worrying. And I like to be patient. I like to give managers time. I also like Ruben Amorim, the way he speaks about the club, the job at hand. I think he's spot on with most of the things he says. Sometimes he's almost honest to a fault, but I do worry if we lose that final, going into next season, the first couple of weeks then just become massive for us.
How worried are you about his comments? Because we all like our managers to be honest, sometimes. But you've just said that, is he too honest? And when he's talking about, I said a few months ago, he said something about like, this is the worst Manchester United team in the Premier League. I thought that was a strange thing to say. But he said something after the game at the weekend about maybe getting a new manager in next season if this continues?
I think he's just aware of the fact of what club is at. Like you said earlier, Gary said earlier about Arteta, you're not going to get those chances to finish 8th, 5th, and maybe build something in a couple of years. So I think he's just aware of the fact that he has to get it right quickly, even though he has to also go for a rebuild. If Manchester United players have an issue with him saying that this is the worst Premier League team in the club's history, then they've got a problem with themselves, because I think it's the position in the league speaks volumes for that. Could he do things a little bit better in the league? Maybe. Would he have to sacrifice his philosophy and his culture to do that? Yes. So I'm kind of happy for him to stick by his guns. I just think if we're going to play these league games the way we are, maybe just try and use a few more young players, because whilst it is all up in the air for the summer, we don't know how many players we can bring in. I think the youth could be a way out of it for United.
But I thought last summer when they signed those players, when they signed De Ligt, they signed, obviously those Xerxes, Agate, trying to think of else. Yoro. I actually thought, something? This should be a team that go and qualify for Champions League this year. I think most of us thought Manchester United would finish in the Champions League. I think maybe even you had them in the Champions League places. What's happened? I have no idea. I have no idea what's happening there in respect of on the pitch, in the dressing room. But he needs to wipe them out. It's got to the point now whereby, I mean, other than... And
how can he, if he... Say you don't win you lose the Europa League final, there's not that money, you still need
you're talking about 8 to 10 players have to go. They has to get them out.
But they can only do that though if they're in the Champions League, though, can't they? Is that what you're saying?
There's 3 or 4 players who will leave through being out of contract. So there's 3 or 4 players just naturally will leave. And then he needs to get 5 or 6 out. And they're going to need to pay to get them out. Big money. They pay. Do you think Rashford's wages now will be paid half by Manchester United? So that's 180 grand a week. That's £8 million a year he's been paid by United.
I read something the other day, Adam, you might know that, I know it was in the paper, but it was they said Casemiro's wages would go up from 350.
No,
is that rubbish?
No,
if they qualify for the Champions League.
If they're not in the Champions League, the players' wages come down by 20-25%.
No, but they're not in the Champions League. What they were saying is if they get in it, his wages go up to
they've come down this year and they go back up next year.
They've come back down this year, they'll go back up 20-25%. Yeah.
You got to look at the squad though, and I do think, whilst I don't think the position is acceptable where we are, to say that the team is ready for a manager to kind of take and just, fire at the league, I think is mental. When you look at the squad, like we've got a striker that couldn't hit a barn door, no backup for him. You've got a goalkeeper that I don't think he trusts. Most of our centre-halves are picking up injuries left, right and centre. And then I went early on in September and I'm kind of going back to where I was with Manuel Ugarte. I just don't think he's good enough on the ball. Again, you were talking about Zubimendi and what he could bring to Arsenal. He does some good things off the ball in terms of winning possession back, but he gives possession away so much. You see it against West Ham at the weekend. He just fell on his arse. There's no one next to him. He just falls over, stays on the ground and watches him score. And it's like, is he the player?
I always think it's a worry even when my own club do it, where you buy a player for big money who can't get in the team that you're buying them off, and they're happy to sell them.
And you watch PSG now and you go,
I
know why they sold him.
We said that at the time, Jamie, if you remember.
Yeah,
we said it about his mate, De Ligt as well,
yeah. Hey, De Ligt, I think De Ligt's a player though, man. I don't think...
look, he has done all right, yeah.
Yeah, I think De Ligt's good. I think Lenny Yoro's a talent, and I think Mazraoui's all right, but most of the business hasn't.
But if we look at United, and look, obviously Onana's not done very well, but if you look at the fact they've got Yoro, Lindelof, Maguire, Martinez, De Ligt.
How's Lindelof still?
Right, those 5 centre-halves there should be able to do a bloody good job in the Premier League. I mean, you look at other clubs and what they're doing. Those 5 defenders should be. You've got Luke Shaw as well. You've got Mazraoui, you've got Dalot. Up top, we had, when he came in, we had Anthony, Rashford, Garnacho, Højlund, Zirkzee, Ahmad, right? There's 6 players that I think that if you put them in another club, I think they would do a good job. I honestly, if you had Zirkzee...
Well, they are doing. No. Some of them.
My point is, so for me, if you look at those 6 players, Anthony, even Sancho was there, was he gone by
How
then?
do you say this every year?
No, but
you
Cara,
do this every year. You go,
Cara,
we've got Rashford, we've got Sancho, we've got him.
They're not good. Sancho's not good enough.
No,
look at the state of him at Chelsea.
Cara, I know that. My point is, though, these players, I get they're not good enough, but what Manchester United do to players, I've said it's become a graveyard for players. They're not as bad as they're showing. Now, it's a horrible performance, but if you had Garnacho, Rashford and Ahmad and Zirkzee, Højlund, Bruno as your forward, all right, it's not perfect, it's not amazing, but to not score goals all season at that level, I'm sorry, that's not right.
So what I'm saying is you've gone through the centre-back, you said they're good enough, you said the strikers are good enough. So why are Man United, where are they, 16, 17?
Do you know something? I genuinely believe, and it's been a graveyard for every single player that's joined that club for 10 years apart from Bruno. There is not one player joined that club that's improved apart from Bruno Fernandes. And he's a standout, to be fair. He's amazing what he's doing. The rest of them, whether you go back to Di Maria, Schweinsteiger, every player that's signed has gone backwards.
Why? I think we can
that's
say
the mystery.
That's
the mystery.
Them players you just reeled off there.
That's the mystery.
We'd love to have them all now.
That's the mystery.
Why?
I don't know. Just because that's where you look at something that's just like, you can't explain it. You don't even know what's happening. Amorim must look at it and think, what's
you have
going
to try and think what it is. Is it the coaching?
But that's why you got to be brave, though. It's like we're saying Rashford's good and Anthony's good and this, that, and the other. But we had to let them go in January because ultimately Rashford was causing it. And that's why I get where the manager's got. You've listed 6, 7 players there. He's had 2 available to him, if that at times. Ahmad's been injured for a long time at times. Garnacho's been in and out of form.
We got rid of 2.
Like Højlund's been available on a regular basis.
We got rid of 2 though. I mean, what I'm saying, I'm not disagreeing with him getting rid of any of them. I'm not saying they need to wipe them out, but I do genuinely believe if these players were en masse at another club, if those players were playing for Crystal Palace, right, they would be doing better than they are for Manchester United.
It's the pressure.
We all know that, but why? Can they not handle the club? Is that what it is?
I mean, you have played for Manchester United, obviously the most successful probably team in the club's history. You support them. Is the pressure playing for Manchester United, but it's too much for players? I mean, too much for these players?
Without the support.
Is it too much for them to take on this pressure where they can't express themselves, they don't actually want to play? It's too much for them.
I think it has become too much for. I think the scrutiny, the criticism. I think it is a lot for them. I think it's a lot.
It's not just players, managers as well. Now,
yeah, it's a lot for them. It's a lot for them. I think.
Isn't there just like a joyless culture running right through the club, though? You know, this constant stuff that you hear every day. Like I've been driving in and saying, if they win the Europa League, they'll have a barbecue. You know, like, you know what I mean? It's
One burger each, though. One burger.
Share it. Voucher for a burger.
To be fair though, if we had a parade, it would be ridiculous. You can't be having a parade for being 17th in the league. We didn't have a parade when we won the European Cup, for Christ's sake. So
You can't win that battle.
no, because of the Rangers fans ruined that one. But I was refreshed with what Jim Ratcliffe said to you in his interview though about, and maybe that's where the calmness comes from with him, with the results in the league. Like the owner kind of came out and said, "He's our guy. We're going to stick with him."
Oh, definitely stick.
And he was aware of the amount of players he actually has available in terms of the wage bill, in comparison to who's on the pitch. It isn't much. So I was refreshed to hear the ownership come out and kind of back him. But
when obviously you think about Dan Ashworth leaving, which is still quite a sort of big moment, I think, in the season, that sort of got it was treated as quite a big moment at the time. But knowing him as I do and how sort of reliable Dan Ashworth is and trustworthy is, he went with a plan, I think, to them that would look pretty unspectacular at the time. He gave them 2 or 3 managers that basically didn't get the juices flowing and said, sort of, these are the people who I think need to be the first step on the rebuild of this football club.
Gareth Southgate and Eddie Howe.
Yeah, them type of people, Graham Potter maybe, say, look, these people will correct the culture within the club. They'll get the dressing room solid, you'll get good characters, you'll get a good work ethic, and it's the bridge that's needed to get to where we need to get to. You're not going to go from where we are to basically there. And looking back now, maybe he was right. The club just needed a period of sort of 2 or 3 years of what would be finishing 4th, finishing 5th, getting a really good culture, getting the staff happy. You mentioned about a joyless culture. You know, there's at this moment in time 200 people, 300 people at risk. They've not been told yet. You know, they were told 2 weeks ago they were at risk. So there's 150 people in that club. You imagine that, you know, going into a place whereby you're wondering whether you're going to lose your job. And there's nothing they can do about that. They knew they were going to do that when they came in. But you imagine the feeling in that place around the players, around the club. So you think, at the moment, he was maybe right in how he looked at it, Dan, that there is maybe a stepping stone before we get back to...
Gareth Southgate weren't
No, I'm not saying... No, and I didn't support it at the time.
They needed the man before the man, didn't they?
But I didn't support it at the time, but and said I didn't think it would be the right mix. But when I look now and think what's going on, it's really worrying. And if they don't win the Europa League, that means they won't have the players that he wants next season, which means they might not get in the Champions League again, which means it could just literally kick it on for another 2 or 3 years. It really is a worry. It's a big... I'm genuinely, I said it last week, I've got a sickly feeling about this game next Wednesday.